Welcome to St. Louis Presents.
And Debbie, I wanted to, before we get started, give a quick shout out to Carrie Hauk and her team, who just recently wrapped up, and I'm sure you heard about it, the first Tennessee Williams Festival.
I didn't realize it was the first.
It's the first ever. It went for 5 days in Grand Center, different locations in Grand Center and the Central West End. There were productions of his plays, there were music, there was parties, all kind of events. And it's going to be an annual thing, so they did a really good job. And my favorite part of it was the Stella shouting contest. You know, Stella?
Stella!
Right.
We have a Stella in studio with us today.
I wanted to mention that. You probably think this was planned this way, but it wasn't. We have a four-legged Stella, and Stella has brought an adult with her, a human being,
yes,
from the Animal Protection Association to talk about issues that they're concerned about.
Well, and we have a bunch of my favorite things today. We have a dog in studio.
But I had to ask you one thing. I'm just wondering if Circus Flora has any elephants named Stella? Is that possible?
There was an elephant named Flora.
Right.
We will have dogs in the show at Circus Flora this year. We have
Right.
Circus Flora in the house with us because the 30th anniversary season kicks off in June. So we'll talk about that. And the Landmarks Association of St. Louis had its Most Enhanced Awards, the 20th annual. So just honoring all these amazing projects all over St. Louis of people rescuing beautiful old buildings and putting them back into new life.
Yeah, that's a good thing. We're also going to hear about some a really fun family event that's going to raise money to benefit kids with autism. That's coming up too.
It's an action-packed show, folks.
It
So
is.
stay with us. This edition of St. Louis Presents is coming up next. Well, you probably know that you can visit the APA, the Animal Protective Association, when you're looking to adopt a new furry family member, but they also have several great programs that you might not know about.
And joining us now is Stacy Switzer of the APA of Missouri, and she's brought Stella.
Stella's here. She's a little camera shy right now, facing the wrong way.
Oh, that's okay. She's been such a good girl hanging out in studio.
The APA, the Animal Protective Association.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we've been around since 1922. So we're celebrating our 94th year and just have a lot of exciting new programs that we've recently started.
And your facility is on Hanley, right?
Yep.
And a new expanded facility, so people can
Yes,
certainly stop
yeah.
by. Now, we're going to talk about one of the new programs that you have, but I think it's important to mention that Stella, who is the sweetest little pea here, she is so nice, she is a pit bull mix.
Yes.
And there are a lot of pit bulls available for adoption, and people still have a fear or a
Yeah.
bias about
negative
pit bulls.
perception of
You know,
them.
and I keep hearing people argue about that all the time. What's the deal?
Well, you know, I mean, obviously, pit bulls were used for dog fighting or have been used for dog fighting. She's just going to take a nap now. And so they kind of got a bad rap for people using them for those purposes. But initially, pit bulls were family dogs, and they're very loyal dogs, and people used to use them, you know, to almost be babysitters for their kids. So they're good family dogs. A famous pit bull is Petey from the Little Rascals, and
Oh,
people
sure.
forget that too.
You know what I think one of the problems is, isn't it true that pit bulls, do they make up the vast majority of strays, do they?
They make up the vast majority of animals or dogs that you will see in animal shelters. A lot of that, there are breed restrictions in a lot of areas, especially in St. Louis, where if you live in a certain area, you're just not allowed to own pit bulls. So we see them coming in for that reason. And because of people not spaying and neutering them, we do see a lot of litters of puppies coming in, and so that's what we're trying to do, is kind of curb that problem.
But we should point out that pit bulls are fixable.
Yes.
Nice seg.
Nice, yes, thank you. Yes, so we have, thanks to a very generous donor, we have a program set up called Fixable, where we are spaying and neutering pit bulls and pit bull mixes free of charge at the APA.
What does a person have to do to take advantage of that?
They just really have to call us and make an appointment. So we flip back and forth. It usually happens on either Wednesdays or Fridays, but it happens at least once a week. We kicked off the program in February, and so far have spayed or neutered 96 pit mixes.
And the thing about the stray problem, that's really a people problem, isn't it? It's not really it's almost a people problem, not a dog problem.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Now, I have heard many times that when there is a household where there is abuse going on, when there is an abusive person in the house, the dogs are often subjected to that as well. But I hadn't really thought about the fact that it sometimes can keep a person who's abused from leaving the home. Explain.
Yeah, so there's, we've had a program called our Domestic Violence Pet Assistance Program that's been going on since 1997 that a lot of people don't know about. But statistics show that anywhere between 25 to 40% of women that are in a domestic violence situation will either delay or just not even leave their abuser at all because they have nowhere to go with their pet. They don't want to leave the pet with the abuser, but a lot of domestic violence shelters just don't have the capacity to also house animals. So, once a woman has checked into a domestic violence shelter, if she's in, an unfortunate situation like that, she just gives us a call, her caseworker gives us a call, and we can take that animal and foster that animal until she gets back on her feet.
And so they don't have to have that fear that the dog is going to be adopted or sent away to somebody else.
Right, exactly. We hold on to it for them until they've, gotten their situation.
That's fascinating. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
You're also doing another program that Jennifer Blome is passionate about, I guess.
Yes, so Jennifer Blome is our Director of Humane Education at the APA, and she has started what's called a Tuesday Tales reading program. So it's every Tuesday at the APA Adoption Center on Hanley Road, 10:30 a.m., free of charge. It's just guest storytellers. Sometimes Jennifer's reading the story herself. Just come in, no reservations, just show up at 10:30 a.m., just listen to a story. They're usually animal-themed stories. And then she usually gives a little tour of the shelter as well. So, the little kids get some playtime and puppy petting time as well while they're at the APA.
Now, Stella is not available for adoption.
Stella is not. I will not give her up. She is my dog. I did adopt her from the APA, though, so she is an APA dog.
I hear you guys like to party.
Yes.
Exactly. Now you know what I'm referring to, though.
Yeah, exactly. So, we've got, Stella, I like to say, was my New Year's Eve date. I took her home on New Year's Eve.
But you have these ADA parties, don't you?
The APA parties?
APA parties. I've got my initials.
We've got birthday parties.
I guess that's what I was thinking of.
Yes. So we've got, and that's also through our education department. Jennifer Blome hosts birthday parties for children, typically 10 and under, but we have adults sometimes come in that want to have their birthday party at the APA. So same thing, the kids come in, they get 2 hours use of our education room, which is toys and books and all kinds of fun stuff for kids. And they get a 30-minute class of their choice, maybe animal safety, dog training. Sometimes kids like to teach dogs how to sit. So it's just a lot of fun, and they get, again, a tour of the shelter. And a lot of kids, it's really great. They come in and they, instead of asking for birthday parties or birthday presents for themselves, they'll ask their friends to bring presents for the dogs.
Aww.
So it's been really great.
I think Stella could use a pillow, maybe.
I know.
She's not been a good on-air guest. She's just sleeping. There you go, Stella.
Now, our family dog is also a shelter dog, and I can say that they know that they've gotten a second lease on life.
They appreciate it.
Yeah.
Check it out at the APA, and I'm sure we'll have the information. Is it APA?
APAMO.org.
APAMO.org. And maybe some of Stella's friends at the shelter would like a new home, so check it out. Stacey, thanks so much for being with us today.
You.
We really appreciate it. And there's the information on the screen there for the Fixable program and the website as well. So check it out. The APA Adoption Center opens 7 days a week. We're going to take a break, and we've still got so much to get to. Buildings and circus and so much more here on St. Louis Presents.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did. Are you on your way to the mall? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
Welcome back. Circus Flora is turning 30 this summer, and they are celebrating with a great production that is just perfect for our baseball crazy town. Here to tell us more about it is Circus Flora's artistic director, Jack Marsh. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Debbie.
Now, every year, Circus Flora has a different storyline, and this being the 30th anniversary, I think it was probably perfect to have a theme of something else that St. Louis is crazy about, baseball.
Yeah, well, we're baseball's hometown circus, and we thought it would be, we're a summer fixture in St. Louis, and we thought it would be great to celebrate another summer fixture in St. Louis.
So 30 years as St. Louis's very own circus, that is a major accomplishment. And I know there are still some people out in the audience who may not be familiar. So if you could, in a nutshell, what is Circus Flora? What makes it different than maybe some of the other circuses people may be thinking of?
Yeah, I think we hear from our audience quite a bit a sense of surprise after they see our show that we're somehow different from what they expected. I think people hear about a circus and they have these very specific images that come to mind. Maybe it's something where you bring your kid who is visually stimulated, but you don't really have a good time yourself necessarily. And I think what Circus Flora does is it makes it exciting and interesting and beautiful for the adults who come as well as for the kids. And so when you leave, you have this sense that you've been entertained and you've had this great experience and your kid has as well. And I think it's this great thing that can bring families together in that way.
Yeah, I don't think I've missed a show in the last dozen years, and I'm never sure who is enjoying it more, my kids or me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Everyone has a good time when they go to Circus Flora. How do you weave the storyline? Because I don't think most people think of a circus as having a story, but it is more of a show than just a circus.
Yeah, well, we consider ourselves a theatrical circus, and so it has the look and feel of a classical circus where we have a tent and we have a sawdust ring and all the action is happening in the ring. But we tell a story through our circus performers. So each of the artists takes on a different character in the show, and they all relate to one another and they participate in each other's performances. And so it creates this full sort of this full production that is not just one act after another act that doesn't have anything to do with one another. Everyone's working together to create this more full evening.
Now, not to put you on the spot, Jack, but I think you have such an interesting background because you are a Harvard graduate, you're an attorney, and you're the artistic director for a circus. How does that, how do all those things come together?
Well, it's because I grew up working with and performing with Circus Flora. My mother, Cecil McKinnon, has been involved with Circus Flora since the beginning, from 30 years ago. And so when I was 2 years old, Circus Flora started, and I was with it since then. And I took a bit of a break to go off to college and to law school, and I spent a couple years working as a corporate attorney, but my job as an attorney was never quite as interesting
as It's a circus in another
Flora.
way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so I right before I started working, I was able to work with Circus Flora on putting together one of our collaborations that we did with the St. Louis Symphony, which was just such an amazing experience and really showed me what potential Circus Flora has in making some really incredible, innovative stuff. And so I was inspired to come back and work with Circus Flora again. I think I'm looking forward to helping take us into the next 30 years of making new and innovative performances.
And I don't know if people in St. Louis realize how St. Louis has really become a center for circus arts. There are performers who are coming out of St. Louis who are, growing up with circus arts and traveling all over the world now. And Circus Flora brings in some of the greatest names in circus, including the Wallendas, every single year.
Yeah, well, what Circus Flora does is great because we're St. Louis based, but we also do bring in these world-class performers from everywhere. And so this year's show, it combines performers who live in St. Louis now. The St. Louis Arches from Circus Harmony are in our show. Two of our other performers, Melvin and Sydney, came out of the Circus Harmony program and have since gone on to travel the world and are now coming back to perform as professionals in our production. And then along with them, we also have the Flying Wallendas on the High Wire, the Flying Cortez and the Flying Trapeze, a group called the Cuban Connection, who they do what's called the Russian bar and also the Chinese pole. Our clown Amanda Crockett, who does this wonderful hat juggling routine and also a comedy trapeze act. She's hilarious and talented and strong. We just have this great mix of performers that bring together this really world-class show.
Well, I cannot recommend it enough. I want everybody to make sure that they make a date. It's a month-long run, so there's certainly enough dates for people to choose from, and there's some information on the screen. Circus Flora's Pastime, it kicks off on June 2nd and runs through June the 3rd. It's under the Big Top in Grand Center next to Powell Symphony Hall, so you cannot miss it. circusflora.org. Do not miss it, people. I'm serious about this. Jack Marsh, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Debbie.
Now, Steve's got some news headlines for us, so stick around. Steve?
Thank you, Debbie. And yeah, I'm a big fan of Circus Flora too. Never miss it. And I always like to take people that have never been. Well, congratulations to STL Youth Jobs for receiving Focus St. Louis's What's Right with the Region Award. Since 2013, the organization has provided nearly 1,400 youth between the ages of 16 and 24 with paid work experience, job readiness, and financial literacy training, as well as career and mentoring services. So thanks to several diverse partnerships, they're able to bridge the gap between the challenges our youth face and the growing demands of our local workforce. For more information, visit stlyouthjobs.org. And the City of St. Louis was recently named a recipient of the 2016 John A. Sasso Award from the National Community Development Association for its outstanding Community Development Week activities. St. Louis was one of only 7 cities to receive the award throughout the country. Cities were chosen based on evaluation of partnerships, engagement, results, and innovation. To learn more about the activities from this year's Community Development Week, visit the city's website and click the News tab at stlouis-mo.gov. And did you know that autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disorders in the U.S.? Currently, 1 in 68 children are affected by the disorder. While there's no cure for autism, organizations like Moving Kids Off the Spectrum are dedicated to assisting families in care and treatments. And here to tell us more about that, and a great event set for this summer, are Dr. Bart and Tracy Coleman. So glad you could join us today.
Thanks for having us, Steve.
You know, I wonder if you could clear up something for me. I'm always a little bit confused about autism and what it actually is. I've met a few autistic people, I've read about it, but in my mind, when I'm thinking about it, I can't always put my finger on it. Is that because autism is sort of a big umbrella and there are lots of gray area?
Yes, that's correct. There's that's why our charity is called Moving Kids Off the Spectrum, because there is a whole spectrum from severe autistic savants to children who are affected with autism to Asperger's to ADD to ADHD. So, you know, you see deficits in behavior, communication, socialization, and just some health deficits as well. They don't sleep well, they have constipation, diarrhea, they have different health issues as well, toe walking, and some of these things that we might see with these kids.
So Stacy, then when a person grows up and is autistic, depending on where they are in the spectrum, maybe could just affect their life a little bit or a whole lot.
Absolutely, and our organization, like my husband said, we see it as a moving spectrum, and our mission is to help kids move to the left of the spectrum and, you know, trying to prevent any kind of regression and again, trying to move them to the left and sometimes even off of the autistic spectrum, which we see happen.
Yeah, and one of the tools we use is called an ATEC, so I encourage people to go online and Google Complete the ATEC, and they can complete it in any language, so you can do that, and then it'll send you the results in those areas that we talked about. So it stands for Autism Treatment Evaluation Checklist, and parents can see how severe their kid or child is at the time.
Is it a problem, or how big is the problem of children not being diagnosed at all?
I personally, I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, so I work with these kiddos, you know, 5 days a week, and I actually think we're at a place where we're doing a great job of diagnosing kids. I think we're doing just a fantastic job. Kids are getting diagnosed younger and younger, and I actually think it's to their benefit. So our organization typically steps in usually after diagnosis is made, and then we try to provide financial support, emotional support, and
well, one of the things is, though, right, if a kid's diagnosed, I guess for certain kids, they can get better depending on if you can get the right treatment, right?
We believe that's what we're all about.
That's what our charity does, and we specifically track each ATEC and watch these kids move down and have their numbers get better. And some kids are responders, just like with any therapy, and so we try to help these kids respond and get better, and we see great stories on our charity tracks.
Now, you're a chiropractor, so does Does your trade, is that part of the reason you're involved with this, and how?
I think integrative medicine is, chiropractors are concerned about conservative health and helping people get healthy and stay healthy. So as a chiropractor, I'm drawn to this because it's really tragic to watch these families who are affected with a possible long-term diagnosis. So if we can save just a few kids and a few families and help these families be happier and healthier, that's our mission.
Well, speaking of families, you guys are doing a really fun event, and you're inviting families.
Yes, we would love to have as many people as possible come out. It's Sunday, June 12th. I'll let you talk about the
Yeah,
biking
out
part.
at Lake St. Albans. You might see some pictures on the screen. We have a lot of, we initially attract to cyclists. So we have a very difficult 60-mile route, 30-mile route.
Now, you have barbecue, so you got me interested.
Yes, Pappy's Barbecue. You can come out to the country to get that. We've got it here, so you can come out. Pappy's is there. We provide a great meal afterwards. The Country Club at St. Albans provides the meal. See some pictures of some yoga. This year we moved in our yoga to a indoor-outdoor facility next at the Old Barn Inn.
We're going to try family yoga this year,
Yes.
so we're excited for that.
Deidre Herzog was great to open up that facility, and people can do that overlooking the garden. And then it's all capped off at the end with a great carnival where families can come out and join a number of activities that Tracy will tell you about.
We love our carnival because we think we're unique. It's all about moving, which ties into our Moving Kids Off the Spectrum. So the kiddos get a chance to do kayaks, canoeing. We've got gymnastics groups out there, bounce houses, rock climbing walls. It's just all about activity. Home Depot will come out with projects for the kids, and they get little aprons, and they get to make their projects. And the one thing we really want to emphasize is we are set up to help kids with special needs, but we would love to have everybody out there.
I was just going to ask you
Yes,
that, to be
it's for
clear, this
everybody.
isn't necessarily an event for autistic kids.
Absolutely, all the funds go to support those kids, but we are ready to help those kids that do have special needs. We're therapists run, so we can support those needs, but we really want children without special needs as well.
Well, it sounds like the takeaway is sort of good news, that more kids are being diagnosed these days, and if they are diagnosed, a lot of them can improve their situation, right?
Especially with early intervention.
I have to say one other thing about the carnival that we're so excited for. We have a princess boutique, so the little girls will get to have hair updos, they'll get to have their nails done, they'll get to meet and greet 8 princesses, and they get a horse-drawn carriage ride with the princess, and we just found out that Miss Missouri is going to be a part there, so the girls will get to meet her, and so that's our celebrity for this year.
So how can we find out more about this? You got a good website?
Yes, pedalthepuzzle.org, www.pedalthepuzzle.org. You can learn more, and we can register the cyclists at Eventbrite.
And that's Pedal the Puzzle, benefiting moving kids off the spectrum. And we want to thank Bart and Tracy Coleman for being here. And have a great event.
All right,
Thank you,
Steve.
Appreciate it.
And Debbie, I love that acronym, MKOTS. Kind of catchy. And I've never been to St. Albans. I hear it's a beautiful place, so I'm going to try to check that out.
Yeah, I have never been there either, but it looked beautiful
Yeah.
from the pictures. Well, I recently had the pleasure of being part once, I think for the 3rd year in a row now, of the Landmark Association's Most Enhanced Awards, and this is the 20th Most Enhanced.
Wow. Executive Director Andrew Weil is joining us right now to talk about some of this year's winners.
Hi.
Hi.
I think one of the best things about this event, Andrew, is just to see the before and after pictures. I honestly think, aside from the people who win the awards, who come to get the award, the rest of us just come because we want to see the before and after pictures.
Yeah, that's exactly right. More than half of the people that come every year, they're just there to gawk.
And gawk because these are buildings or projects that maybe other people would have just said, knock that down, but somebody saw something worth saving.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are projects that exemplify the incredible progress that's being made revitalizing so many of our beautiful historic neighborhoods. Not every project is a Most Enhanced Award winner. Sometimes, you have a rehab project that's new paint, maybe some new drywall and repairing the roof. But in other cases, the projects that we're recognizing for the most part are projects where a building just was utterly transformed through the historic rehabilitation process.
And does it matter what kind of a building it is to be saved? I mean, does it have to be like a fancy building with a marble foyer or something?
No, definitely not. We specifically try to have a diversity of project types and development entities and geographic diversity around the city. So we have everything from small single-family homes all the way up to the great arcade building downtown.
And does it matter how old the building is?
Well, it does in the sense that it needs to be a historic rehabilitation, and so we're talking about buildings that are, over 50 years old in most cases, and in most cases these are projects that are taking advantage of incentives like the Historic Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program, which means that these buildings are either listed individually in the National Register of Historic Places or part of National Register Historic Districts.
It's funny, I used to always think about saving old buildings, and now old buildings, some of these buildings were built when I was young, and now they're historic. I have a hard time with that.
One of them, perhaps, mid-century modern, but we have one mid-century building this year, the former Remington Rand building on Lindell. But, that's a historic building in that it's a relatively rare architectural type in St. Louis City, and it was one of Gio Obata's first designs. So as time moves on, future generations will look back on that and say, well, that's actually pretty interesting. It doesn't fit the mold, perhaps, of our typical, red brick, quote-unquote, historic building in St. Louis,
right.
but certainly it is.
And what I really love, too, about the rehabilitation that people are doing is sometimes just that one building ends up leading to a couple more buildings and then a whole block and then a whole neighborhood.
Right. Or the converse of that is maybe this was a problem property that was really kind of having a chilling effect on the surrounding neighborhood, that someone comes in and says, you know what, we're going to do it. We're going to take care of this problem. And so, these projects and historic rehabilitation in general is not, it's about the building, but it's also about community revitalization and neighborhood revitalization and putting these places back to use.
Because you would say that often it's better to refurbish buildings rather than tear them down and start over.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a more sustainable approach. These buildings have embodied energy. All of the materials that are in these buildings have already been extracted and refined and transported and assembled. So all of those processes expend energy. So reusing, this is recycling on a grand scale.
And on the screen, I want to point to what's on the screen right now, because I believe this is the arcade building, the top of the arcade building. And Andrew, this is a building, it's downtown on Olive, and I have been obsessed with it for years because it's been empty since long before I moved to St. Louis, and it bounced around through foreclosures and different owners, and it is finally done.
It is. It's really a huge success story. This was a building that many people in St. Louis remember. It was essentially an early shopping mall. Major retail center, particularly for the jewelry industry back in the early 20th century. But as shopping essentially moved out of the downtown area, and the Pet Corporation was the major tenant in this building. They moved to their own building in 1969. Essentially, this building was completely vacant aside from the first floor from the 1970s on. So this is a major success story for downtown, and I think it's definitely going to catalyze additional investment in adjacent buildings like the Chemical Building and the Union Trust Building, new plans being floated for all of those.
And for people who scoff at the rehabilitation of these buildings, that building just recently came online. It's fully leased, from what I hear.
It's fully leased, and it's a great thing. I mean, if you think about what that vacant building was paying in terms of taxes and what it's paying now, I mean, this revitalization is not just about the physical fabric, but also about the economy of St. Louis.
Well, speaking about the economy, are there enough incentives for people to do this kind of work? Are we encouraging people enough?
Well, what we're seeing right now is that the Historic Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program was created to try to get the ball rolling, to try to make the economics of rehabilitation work so that we got enough momentum that the economy or the market took over. And we're really starting to see that now where projects are being done. There's a big project going on downtown right now, the former City Club building, being done without incentive whatsoever.
It's great success stories. Thanks so much for sharing, and we look forward to the 21st Most Enhanced Awards. And thanks, Andrew Weil of the Landmarks Association, for sharing those before and after photos.
You're very welcome.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed this edition of St. Louis Presents.
I want to thank Andrew and all of our guests, and you at home for watching too, and of course more on Landmarks, Debbie.
Absolutely. You can find them on Facebook and all over, and we will see you on the next edition of St. Louis Presents.